Hey, hello, friends. Thank you for joining me again today. I am still working happily on this fantastic painting. I say that. I throw that in. I throw that in just to encourage myself. Okay, a little self talk there to keep me going. Uh, it is going to be a nice painting, but I was hoping I was further along than I am. Let me pull these notes off here so you can see more or less the whole painting. Here we go, more or less anyway. Um, Let me adjust the angle of that camera just a little bit. So this is the wedding painting I started this past Saturday. Bride and groom are on their honeymoon, so I'm not too far out of date. Let me turn this light off for a minute so I think you can see a little better color if I do that and open one of my blinds over here. Okay, there we go. So that's what it looks like so far. And this backup camera phone here has my photograph of the bride and groom. And of course, this is my controller from my camera. Yesterday, I did quite a bit of work in the background, and I'm going to come back to that later. But today, it's down to business day. Today it's all right. It's get serious. Let's get these faces fixed. Now, let me do a little bit more self-talk. That is a beautiful face, and that's a beautiful face too. The issue is not, can I paint a beautiful face? The answer to that is clear. Yes, I can. The question is, can I paint a beautiful face that looks exactly like this bride? And the answer is, yeah, I can. Have I done so yet? Darn, not quite. I'm very close. I'm very, very close. Um, I've explained this process to you before, but let me go through it again really quickly. This is one of my tricks. It's just a shortcut. It's a mild form of cheating, although there's no measuring involved. Um, Here's what I do with this camera here, this one down here, my backup phone camera. I take a picture of my painting, click, and then in a particular app, a collage app, I put the photo of my painting right next to the photo. Got it? One to one. Ignore all this writing for a minute. Then I take that image in my phone, in my gallery, in my phone camera app, and I turn it backwards. So this is a mirror image, right? Here she's facing to the right. This is a mirror image facing to the left. Why do I do that? Oh, if you've done any portraits, you may not call it this, but you've experienced this. I call it portrait blindness. After just a very relatively short time of working on a person's face, you become blind to all of your mistakes. So I say to all of my students, anytime I get the chance, did you look at that in a mirror? I can tell that they didn't, because I don't have, when I look at somebody else's portrait, or when you look at mine, you don't have portrait blindness. When I look at somebody else's, I'm not portrait blind, so I can say, bam, bam, here's some mistakes. Bum, 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 bum. But I can't see my own because I've been staring at it too long. So this is a trick to refresh my eyeballs. The trick is turn it around. So then, then this is a luxury. I can do all that on my phone and just look at it here. But if I'm in my studio, as you can see I am today, I have the additional luxury of actually printing this image out. Just makes it a little bit easier. Then in this case, you see I took a white pen and I just started, and I want to encourage you. First of all, I think this is a great trick. I think many of you, if you're an emerging, struggling portrait painter as I am, please steal this idea from me. It looks like a lot of work. Oh, phew. Sorry. Thank you, Kaz. Woo! Sorry, forgot to unplug my power cord. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sound is good. Sorry about that. Oh, thank you, Kaz, for telling me that. Okay, so it only took maybe 5, 10 minutes, maybe, to make little tiny notes. Like, where did I start with this one? Oh, I started with the top of her forehead is a little bit short. So I draw a line and label it number 1. Now this is, of course, this is me being slightly obsessive compulsive. You don't have to be like me, but I like being like me. I like being kind of ticky, particular, as some people would call it. I'm ticky. I'm fussy. I'm a pretty orderly guy when it comes to my artwork. And I like things, so I actually write it down, put a number next to it, put a circle around the number. You don't have to do the circle. Hey, Duck, thank you. Thank you for joining me. So this took maybe 10 minutes. What I'm doing here is looking at my painting in mirror image and comparing it to the mirror image of the photograph. And I can see I saw here a total of 18 minor changes that I need to make this painting. Now, just to help you understand this process, it would be quite difficult to go from these 18 changes directly to my painting. Why? Because in the painting, she's facing that way. So it would be hard to translate from here to here. Do you understand? So again, I take yet 4 or 5 more minutes to transfer all of these notes down to here. The whole time I'm comparing. Every time I make a note, I compare it to the photograph and say, yep, 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 yep. So I have 18 small changes. Now, I don't know about you. Let me pick you up for just a minute so you can see up close. Because I would like you to embrace my pain just a little bit. Come on, we're going to get there in a second. Come on, come on, come on. There you go. Okay, I think you would agree with me that that is a pretty, and his is not too bad either. That is a pretty fine, I mean by that, fine old portrait. I did a fine old portrait. I did a pretty good job capturing that woman's face. Did I not? Yeah, pretty good. There's the rub. It's the pretty good. And now I'm telling myself, I'm telling you, I've got 18 changes to make on that pretty face. Doggone it. That's one side of me admittedly says, that's me cussing. The very air was blued. Because that's a beautiful face. Dang, I hate to touch it. Here's the good news. And I'm telling you while I'm telling myself. Take a deep breath. It's not as bad as it looks. Now, the biggest change I need to make is I need to make her entire eye slightly smaller. That hurts a little bit. That one hurts a little bit. Everything else is pretty minor. And of course, these are really small portraits, as you can see. Her, barely 1.5 thumbs. You count her whole face is 2 thumbs, so it's pretty small. So kind of finicky. But here's the good news: it's not as bad as it looks. It's not as bad as it looks. And if I'll stop talking to you and just start buckling down and getting to work, this will fly. I would guess, again, if I don't stop to talk to you guys too much, this whole modification process that I'm doing right now, and this is all going to be small brush stuff, right? Little brushes. This is going to take me 15 minutes, I think, at the most. And I just want you to weigh that out. In the course of doing a painting, a good painting, a nice painting that's going to be gorgeous, is going to hang, it's taking me 10 hours to do the painting. 15 minutes is not that much. You with me? I've already made a couple changes. I started before you guys came on. I started pushing back her forehead just a little bit, her hairline just a tiny bit. Let me take just a second to show you my palette, because again, I want you to see what I'm doing here. Again, before I started broadcasting, I just rather randomly. So this, I am not. Like I know Mark Carter, Daniel Green has all these laid out like perfectly from the darkest to the lightest in every shade. I don't do that. So there you go. We're all different, aren't we? Um, but I have pretty much all I need to get started there. So that's all my colors are already all mixed, so to speak. Okay, so I've already started. Let me continue then, just pushing back her hairline a little bit, because up here in the mirror image, I went, oh, wait a minute, that hairline needs to be pushed back. Does that make sense? And then I translated the notes to this image, and now I'm transferring it to my painting. By the way, while I'm doing this, let me tell you, I'm going through another learning moment, because it turns out this mistake, quote unquote, right here, this mistake that I'm fixing right now is one of my favorite. That is to say, making in a profile view or three-quarter view, I make the ear too close to the face, or I make the side of the face too skinny. So again, and it's a 1/16 or maybe 3/32 of an inch. For those of you who are carpenters, have any idea what 3/32 is? Not even an eighth, less than an eighth. But I'm filing that away. It's like, doggone it, I made that same mistake again, which means I'm growing in my knowledge of how to paint portraits, because once again, I file away. Okay, now listen, Nelson. I'm saying to myself, listen, Nelson, don't forget, you tend to make that too narrow. So next time I do a portrait, I'm going to go, last time, again, okay, got it. So that's just a quickie. Okay, now let's start. And I'm not going to make you do anything. I'm not going to even let you watch me do this entire process, because it's too fussy, too particular. And again, here I am. Look at this death control grip, the kind of stuff that I so to speak, yell at. I don't really yell, but I yell at my students saying, no, don't hold the brush that way, right? Well, that's the reason the book I'm working on is called The Breakable Laws of Painting. Every rule can be broken. You just need to know when to break it. So at the moment, I had her eyebrow, the back part of her eyebrow, I had it a little bit too low. And again, part of what I want you to see, part of what I want you to understand is that making these changes isn't really that difficult. Hallelujah. Thank God for oil paints. And of course, the whole time while I'm doing this, I want to be making frequent references back to my master photograph. This photograph here is much better quality than this one. Got it? That's as big as my Android will go. That is what I really want to keep an eye on, because that's the one that I need to be faithful to. Oh, that is beautiful. I'm talking about my painting now. Just that little eyebrow change. Okay, so that's number 1 on my list. Now her eyebrow is just a little bit too dark. So let me mix up something slightly lighter. It means that's a tiny bit of white in it, right? Opaque to make this lighter and lighter still. Let me reference my good buddy. He doesn't know me at all. I'm being silly, but I consider my good buddy Mark Carter. One of the biggest mistakes we tend to make in portraits is exaggerated contrast. Our darks are too dark and our lights are too light. That's what we tend to do. Our brains have this built-in capacity to exaggerate contrast. Okay, that's number 2. Now let me just stick with my numbers. Number 3 is, okay, here we go. This is the biggie. The answer is, or the number 3 is, her entire eye is too large. I'm going to start by doing just a tiny stroke of dark. Move the white of her eye in a little bit. Now, let's grab a nice, high-quality sable brush. Speaking of high-quality sable, there is none higher. There's none better. If you're serious about being a painter, I think you need some Winsor Newton Series 7. Winsor Newton Series 7. Okay, I'm gonna get my good picture up here. Okay, so what I'm doing right now, as you can see, it's fussy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is fussy going. If I wasn't broadcasting to you guys right now, I would actually have a podcast on. I'd have either history or literature or science or somebody talking about something really interesting. That would help me relax just a little bit. And I would just be not getting impatient, not getting in a hurry. It won't take very long. It really won't. Okay? I'm looking at values. I'm keeping in mind Mark Carder's warning that if you're not careful, you and we will over-exaggerate contrast. So I want to be careful not to do that. Looking, by the way, let me give another pitch for cell phones of all kind. I think they are the best thing around for matching color. In other words, and by the way, let me show you. I think you can see this. Yeah. Whoops. Let's go back to. So there's the photograph that I took the other night at the wedding, right? Look at her face. Now, here's what you can do on an Android that, at least till recently, you cannot do this on an iPhone. This is why the Android camera is better. Now, I mean, and I'm a Mac guy. You know, all my computers are Apples, except for my phones. And that's because my wife got us started on Androids before I even owned a smartphone. But here's what you can do. Watch this. That's the size of the photograph. There. That's what you call blowing up. And this, I think, is the best color reference. Better than an iPad, way better than a computer screen. So don't think a big screen is better. For some reason, I think it has to do with evidently the kind of screen this is, whatever it is, and the size of it are just excellent for matching color. You can't quite paint on the screen because the screen is actually emitting light. But here in a fairly well-lit environment, it's really good for matching color. Okay, back to the job at hand now. Little bit of blush here and a little bit of gray. So I've got gray blush. inner talk, artist talk. Gray blush on my brushes for right here, right in front of her tear duct. Right there. And then a lighter stroke in front of that. Now, let me give you one other word of instruction before I let you go, and I'm going to paint all in by myself. You turn on a fun podcast. Unlike me, I'm going to turn on something I enjoy, which is not listening to me. Let me give you another. And again, let me reference Mark Carder. That's C-A-R-D-E-R. D is in dog. Carder. I succeeded in making the eye smaller. Now I think I've succeeded in making it a little bit too small. Okay, so hang in there. Okay, but here's what I'm going to say about Mark Carter. You do not, he makes this very good point. I agree with him completely. You do not achieve your corrected proper colors by blending, by brushy. You don't put down a light color and a dark color next to it and take your brush and go to make the dark and the light, at least not very much, very tiny bit. What you do is you put down a light color and a dark color, then you mix up separately the in-between color and slap it down. And part of what makes, if I do a good job, part of what will make me look like and this is going to work, that I'm a quote unquote real or a real good portrait painter is in fact the presence of edges, brush strokes. Doing the glassy smooth, perfectly glassy smooth thing, that's a style. It's called realism, hyper-realism. And it's okay, but it's not the best okay. Can I just say it that way? It's not the very best way to paint. Let there be a few little brush strokes. I'm using my pocket knife now to scratch some of the dark that I just put on there a minute ago. Okay, last stroke on her eye, I believe. Tiny bit of reflection. Almost pure white, not quite. Mixing up here. Naples yellow and titanium white. Naples yellow, titanium white. Okay, let's see what shape this reflection is. You can see how small my brush is. I think that'll do it. I could almost use a magnifying glass here, you know? You know you're in trouble when. You're in trouble when a magnifying glass. Okay, I think her eye is perfect. Yay, that was by far the hardest thing I needed to change. And again, I think it's perfect, but I'm going to tweak it a tiny bit. A little bit of heavier eyelid on top. Forgive me, but I think you'd rather err on the side of glamour than not. Okay, so she's got beautiful makeup on at her wedding, of course. Nice eyeshadow, and professionally, she's a beautiful woman anyway. Beautiful girl, I would call her. So I'd rather err on the side of going with her makeup rather than taking some off. Does that make sense to you? You'd rather be slightly complimentary than, you'd rather err on the side, if you're going to make an error at all, you'd rather err on the side of glamour is, I think, the best way to put it. So I'm coming back and adding just a tiny bit of eyeliner, shadow, eyelashes, whatever. Okay, as you can see, this is going to be pretty meticulous business. I've said all I need to say. Don't blend colors together, mix them up and slap them on. Let the edges of the slap appear. That'll make you look like a real painter. And I've showed you this whole system. I'm going to do the same thing with the guy. A little bit surprised because I've spent more time on her face at the reception than I did his. His I just kind of slapped out pretty quickly. But I only have 13 changes. I had 18 on hers, 13 on, so I was pretty close, but a few key changes on his face. And when I'm done that, then I get to go back to the rest of the painting and just finish it up, which will happen certainly this afternoon. Okay, thanks guys for watching. I'll end this broadcast here and start